it's Jonathan, and welcome to my first Sigillum Multarum video of 2021. Today, with some more patriotic gear, we are going to talk about some more states in the United States. More specifically, we will cover the new flag of Mississippi, as well as the states from O to R. I was originally also going to talk about the states from S to W in this video, but I had to give those states their own video, just so this one doesn't get too long. You'll learn about the states beginning with the letters S to W in a few days. As for this video, timestamps for each US state in this video are on screen and down in the description. Now, let's cover some flags. Mississippi. The first flag we will be covering in this video is the flag of Mississippi, which has recently been voted on in a referendum on Election Day. Back in August, we talked about how Mississippi threw out its old Confederate flag for a new design. Now, a design has been voted on and will be adopted in the next session of the Mississippi Legislature. This flag, called the New Magnolia Flag or the In God We Trust flag, has a blue field flanked by two red bars, each bordered with gold bars. Inside the blue field is a magnolia flower surrounded by a circle of 20 white stars, one gold star, and the phrase, "In God We Trust." We'll go over the symbolism of the new magnolia flag in a bit, but first, let's review the history of Mississippi flags. Like most other southern US states, Mississippi adopted its first flag during the American Civil War. On January 9, 1861, Mississippi proclaimed itself to have seceded from the US, and shortly thereafter adopted Mississippi's first flag. A white field with a red border around it, a magnolia tree in the center, and a blue square with a white star on the canton. There is also the variant with the red border only on the fly and with a different magnolia tree in the center, but not only was that flag unofficial, but it may not have been designed until after the war. Returning to the actual flag of Mississippi at the time, this flag was also known as the Magnolia flag and was used by Mississippi throughout its 4 years as a state within the self-proclaimed Confederate state. However, the Confederacy was never recognized as legitimate by the United States, or by any other country for that matter. As a result, when the American Civil War ended with a US victory in 1865, a constitutional convention was established in Mississippi to declare many of the laws passed by the insurgent legislature null and void. Among the many laws repealed by the Constitutional Convention was the law adopting the Magnolia flag, leaving Mississippi flagless for another 29 years. If you even consider an unrecognized insurgent government's laws as having any effect in the first place. Either way, Mississippi remained flagless until February 7, 1894. When the Mississippi Legislature adopted Mississippi's second flag, or first if you don't count the Magnolia flag. This flag had a blue-white-red triband, whose colors came from the flag of the United States, and the old war flag of the Confederacy in the canton. Back during the Jim Crow era, nobody minded the obvious Confederate monument that was this flag. Except of course for African Americans, but even then, it was hard to vote out the legislature when you can't even vote. Jim Crow or otherwise, this flag was used in this form until 1996, unofficially. In 1906, Mississippi issued a revised legal code that repealed any law that wasn't mentioned in the code or reenacted by the legislature. However, the 1906 Mississippi Legal Code accidentally repealed the law adopting the 1894 Mississippi flag, leaving Mississippi to be technically flagless for almost another 100 years. In the meantime, the 1894 flag was used in a technically unofficial sense until 1996, when the state governor Kirk Fordice issued a memorandum adjusting the colors of the flag and adding a white outline outside the war flag. This memorandum wasn't law, but everyone thought it was until 2000, when the Supreme Court of Mississippi finally found the 1906 bureaucratic error that left Mississippi flagless. However, in the time between the 1906 accidental repeal of the Mississippi state flag and the 2000 discovery of the error, the usage of Confederate symbols has become a controversial issue in southern US politics, making the issue of resolving the legal error much more complicated than just simply reenacting the infamous 1894 flag. Therefore, On January 12, 2001, the state governor at that time, Ronnie Musgrove, appointed a commission to design a new state flag of Mississippi, whose vexillological work resulted in this flag, a flag similar to the old 1894 flag and the unofficial 1896 flag, but with yet another slight readjustment of the colors, and more importantly, the Confederate war flag was replaced by a more Unionist-looking canton containing a circle of 20 stars, representing how Mississippi is the 20th U.S. state. This flag's adoption would then be voted on in a referendum, wherein if the Mississippi electorate voted against the blue canton, a slightly recolored version of the 1996 flag would be adopted. This referendum was held on April 17, 2001, and resulted in 64.39% of Mississippians voting for the Confederate canton. Despite this major initial victory for the Confederate canton supporters, its critics weren't finished yet. This was especially the case after 2003, when the state of Georgia changed its state flag from one featuring a gallery of its old flags, including one with a Confederate war flag on it, to one that doesn't feature the Confederate cross at all. We have already covered the Georgia flag in a previous video, but in short, after the Georgian flag of flags was replaced by a cross-free flag, the flag of Mississippi was the only state flag to still feature the war flag of the Confederacy, which for most people isn't exactly an honor. And I am not alone in saying this, for as early as 2014, an artist named Lauren Stennis proposed a new state flag design to, as Stennis herself put it, better capture our history and hopes without denying or romanticizing our past. This flag is officially called the Declare Mississippi flag, but is also nicknamed the Stennis flag or the Hospitality flag. It features a white field with 2 red stripes at the hoist and the fly, and a large blue star surrounded by 19 smaller blue stars. The large blue star on a white field is an inversion of the Bonnie Blue flag, an old secessionist flag from the beginning of the Civil War. The 19 smaller blue stars represent the states that have joined the U.S. before Mississippi. The white field represents faith and possibility. The red stripes on the side represent, to quote Stennis, the blood spilled by Mississippians, whether civilian or military, who have honorably given their lives in pursuit of liberty and justice for all, as well as the debate over what Mississippi's flag should be. Although bills to adopt this flag have not succeeded, some license plates in Mississippi were issued in 2019 that featured the Stennis flag, the flag's initials SF, and the flag's motto, History, Hope, Hospitality. Although 2019 gave Mississippi some license plates with flags on it, it is 2020 that gave Mississippi an actual flag. On May 26th that year, the George Floyd protests began, resulting in, to quote myself in the previous Mississippi flag video, a fresh wave of criticism that finally settled the debate over changing the flag. Within just weeks of the beginning of the protests, many institutions in Mississippi have called for a less Confederate-looking flag of Mississippi. On June 28, 2020, members of the Mississippi legislature proposed a law called House Bill 1796 to disestablish the 2001 Mississippi flag. On the same day, House Bill 1796 was passed by the Mississippi House of Representatives by a margin of 91 to 23, and the Mississippi State Senate by a vote of 37 to 14. Oh, and did I forget to mention that the supporters of House Bill 1796 included members of both the Democrats and the Republicans? Either way, House Bill 1796 was signed by the current governor of Mississippi, Tate Reeves, on June 30th, 2020. The 2001 flag of Mississippi was abolished, leaving Mississippi to be temporarily flagless. A commission of 9 members, called the Commission to Redesign the Mississippi State Flag, was created to design a new state flag of Mississippi. As outlined by House Bill 1796, this new flag has to not feature the Confederate war flag, and include the phrase, "In God We Trust." This latter requirement was somewhat controversial due to the mention of a religious figure on a state flag, probably breaking the constitutional law separating church and state, and certainly breaking the vexillological law separating text and flag. Either way, this flag must also adhere to 4 of the principles of the North American Vexillological Association. Number 1. The flag should be, to quote Nava, so simple that a child can draw it from memory. 2. The flag should have meaningful symbolism. 3. The flag should use 2 or 3 colors, although the file submission has 4. And 4. The flag should either be distinctive or related to another flag whose design is connected to Mississippi in some way. The proposed flag would be voted on in a referendum on November 3rd, 2020, alongside the other general elections that are associated with Election Day. If the Mississippian electorate voted no on the Commission's proposal, the Commission would have to reconvene to design another state flag for the voters to vote on in November 2021. Whatever would happen in the 2020 flag referendum, until a new flag of Mississippi could be adopted, Mississippi would not have an official flag. Though it did have an unofficial placeholder flag, a blue-white-red triband similar to the old flag of Mississippi, with the seal of Mississippi in the center. This flag was originally designed in 2017 for Mississippi's bicentennial, hence why it is called the bicentennial flag, or the more alliterative bicentennial banner. Although the original bicentennial flag had established 1817 written toward the hoist and 2017 bicentennial on the fly, the 2020 bicentennial flag omitted these phrases. By the way, because this flag had no Confederate imagery and incorporated "In God We Trust" in the seal, this flag was eligible to become the full-time flag of Mississippi, and there was in fact a proposal to adopt the bicentennial flag as the flag of Mississippi. However, the commission to redesign the Mississippi state flag did not adopt the bicentennial flag, instead opening the design process of the new Mississippi flag to the public on July 13th, with a deadline being initially set to August 13th, but moved back to August 1st to give the commission more time to review the proposal. Evidently, the commission needed that extra time to review the proposals, for over 2,000 proposed designs were submitted to the commission. In fact, some estimates put the amount of designs at around 2,800 images, but many of these images were accidentally repeated proposals. Either way, 2,000 images is so many choices that I can never have enough time to look at them all. So links to this page will be down in the description. Essentially, out of the proposals that weren't errors, some of these proposals were only ironic in nature, while others were a lot more serious, as you will see in this video. Although the Stennis flag from earlier was not one of the proposed designs, a few modifications of that design were proposed, including the so-called mosquito flag, which may have been either a joke or an error. Anyway, on August 10th, each of the commissioners chose 25 flags to make it to the second round of review, narrowing the amount of proposals from over 2,000 to just 147, which I will link you to down in the description. Then, on August 14th, the commission narrowed the list further from 147 flags to just 9 flags, which is a small enough amount for me to put on the screen right now. This list was narrowed down to 5 on August 18th, and then just 2 on August 25th. One of them is the Great River flag, designed by one Micah Whitson, which had a blue field with a red, white, blue shield similar to that on the Great Seal of the United States, but actually derived from the 1798 seal of the Mississippi Territory. Inside the shield, the rows of 3 lines simultaneously match the 1798 Mississippi Territory seal and represent the 3 countries that have ruled Mississippi before it became a U.S. territory: France, Spain, and Great Britain. The waves at the top of the shield represent the Mississippi River. Above the shield is a 5-pointed star made of diamonds, representing the native Choctaw Nation, which has a significant population in Mississippi. Underneath the shield is, of course, the motto that was required by law to be on the flag. The other flag proposal is the New Magnolia flag, designed by Rocky Vaughn, along with Suanna Joe, Kara Giles, and Dominique Pugh. The New Magnolia flag's name is, of course, an homage to the Magnolia flag used during the American Civil War. I'll describe the symbolism of the New Magnolia flag shortly. But you may have noticed that the Choctaw star from the Great River flag is present on not just the New Magnolia flag, but also on the 3 other designs announced on August 18th as possible Mississippi flags. The star seen on these flags was designed by Micah Whitson for the Great River flag, and was then placed on the other ones by the commission. Anyway, On September 2nd, 8 of the 9 members of the commission voted to choose the new Magnolia flag as the proposed new flag of Mississippi, putting it on the ballot for November 3rd. While putting it on the ballot, the commission slightly modified the design of the new Magnolia flag so that the proportions would be 5:8 instead of the original 1:2 proposed, and the statement of the flower was filled in. After that modification and the new Magnolia flag, now officially called the In God We Trust flag, being proclaimed the officially proposed flag of Mississippi, all the preparations have been made for Mississippi Ballot Measure 3, a simple yes or no question whose details I've mentioned earlier, and which was held on Election Day. As of November 20th, 2020, with the currently uncertified but completely counted results of the referendum, the new Magnolia flag has won 72.78% of the vote, and as a result, it is already widely used in Mississippi. The new Magnolia flag will be officially adopted in the next session of the Mississippi Legislature, which will begin in January 2021. For now, let's look at the symbolism. The magnolia flower, the centerpiece of the new Magnolia flag, is the official state flower of Mississippi, hence why Mississippi is nicknamed the Magnolia State. The magnolia flower of the new Magnolia flag also represents hope and rebirth, since the magnolia flower blooms more than once and for a long time. The 20 white stars represent how Mississippi was the 20th state, and the 21st gold star of the Choctaw Nation represents the Native Americans that have been living in Mississippi since long before European colonization. The blue field is an allusion to the canton of the flag of the United States, as well as a symbol of determination, justice, and vigilance. The red bars represent courage and strength, while the gold stripes and stamen represent the culture of Mississippi, especially Mississippi's literature, music, and visual and performing arts. That is, or will be, the flag of Mississippi. Now, let's cover some more state flags. Ohio. Our second flag for today is the flag of Ohio, the most unique of the US state flags. It is a swallowtail flag with 5 red and white stripes in the fly, and a blue triangle of stars, and a red circle at the hoist. It is the only non-rectangular state flag in the United States. We'll get to the symbolism in a bit, but first, let's explain its shape and history. Before 1902, Ohio did not have its own flag, instead just flying the US flag. In the late 19th century, and especially during the American Civil War and the Spanish-American War, guidon variants of the US flag were used by American cavalry units. It was this flag that cavalry units from Ohio flew during the American Civil War. Later, in 1901, an architect named John Eisenman was hired to design Ohio's exhibition hall at the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York. While Eisenman was doing that, he also designed a flag to fly at the exhibition hall. This one was a guidon similar to the ones flown by the Unionist cavalry of the Civil War, but with less stripes and a different hoist. When the flag was originally designed, it represented Ohio's exhibit at the Pan American Exposition, and not Ohio itself. However, the following year, on May 9, 1902, the flag from the Pan American Exposition was officially adopted as the state flag of Ohio, which it still is today. Now, let's take a look at the symbolism. The guidon shape is, as I said, inspired by the flags of US cavalry units in the late 19th century. The red and white stripes represent Ohio's waterways and roads, in addition to being a reference to the US flag. The blue triangle is also similar to the flag of the United States. The red circle with a white outline represents the first letter of the state's name, as well as a buckeye nut, which is the state tree of Ohio and the origin of Ohio's nickname, the Buckeye State. The 13 stars around the red circle represent the 13 colonies, while the 4 stars to the right of the circle represent the 4 states that were admitted to the Union by the time Ohio became a state in 1803. The 17 stars on the flag represent, in total, Ohio being the 17th state of the United States. That is the symbolism of the flag of Ohio. One more thing to mention in this segment is that the Ohio guidon also has a Pledge of Allegiance to be recited after the US pledge. Ohio's Pledge of Allegiance says, "I salute the flag of the state of Ohio, and pledge to the Buckeye State respect and loyalty." That's all for Ohio, so let's move on to our next flag. Oklahoma. Our next flag is the flag of Oklahoma, a blue field with a Native American shield on it. We'll go over the symbolism in a bit, but in order to understand the context, we should cover Oklahoma's history first. From 1834 to 1890, and 1907 to a lesser extent, most of what is now Oklahoma was called the Indian Territory, lands that were set aside for settling by Native American tribes that were forcibly relocated from lands further east. The Indian Territory did not have its own flag, but there was one tribe that used a flag during the American Civil War that is important to this story. Although the Indian Territory did not join the Confederacy, there were some American Indian tribes in the area that fought for the Confederacy. The Choctaw Nation was one of these tribes. In 1860, it adopted this flag, a blue field with a white ring containing a red circle with two arrows, a bow and a hatchet. This flag fell out of use after the Civil War, with the Choctaw adopting a slightly different flag. But this design will pop up again soon. For now, there is more history to cover. In 1890, the western part of the Indian Territory became Oklahoma Territory, which did not have a flag either. And in 1907, Oklahoma Territory merged with the Indian Territory to form the state of Oklahoma. 4 years later, in 1911, Oklahoma got its first flag, a red field with a white star on a blue outline, with 46 being written within the star to represent Oklahoma being the 46th state. A red flag with a star on it for a US state flag. What could possibly go wrong? Oh yes! Yaussiai Dutndyaitdyadiism. Sorry, some of the Latin letters were switched out for Cyrillic ones that look like the Latin letters they replaced, but sound very differently. That's not how Russian works, Michael! That was fake Russian for Russian authoritarianism, and that was what caused the flag of Oklahoma to change. In the early 1920s, red flags and stars were associated with the communist regime that was ruling Russia at the time. So, in a classic American manner, Oklahoma decided to change its flag, although the 1911 Oklahoma flag can still be seen sometimes as a historical symbol. The 1924 flag design competition resulted in a blue field with a Native American shield being proposed, and this flag being adopted on April 2nd, 1925. This one is relatively similar to the current one, but there are still a few more changes to go through. In 1941, in order to encourage Oklahomans to learn how to read, the name of the state was added below the shield. This is the basic design that is still in use to this day. However, it was slightly recolored in 1988, before getting the colors it still has today on November the 1st, 2006. Now, on to the symbolism. The blue field was inspired by the old flag of the Choctaw Nation, but also represents devotion. The shield is based on a type of shield by the Osage Nation, another tribe in Oklahoma. 6 crosses are featured on the shield, the Native American way of portraying stars. The shield is covered by 2 different symbols of peace, the ceremonial pipe of Native Americans and the olive branch of European Americans. The shield being surrounded by Amerindian and European American peace symbols represent both peace between these 2 peoples of Oklahoma and the willingness of Oklahoma to defend itself at war. That is the symbolism of the flag of Oklahoma. This flag is yet another US state flag to have a Pledge of Allegiance to be used alongside the US one. The Oklahoma Flag Pledge says, "I salute the flag of the state of Oklahoma. Its symbols of peace unite all people." Now, on to our next flag. Oregon. Our next flag is the flag of Oregon, the only 2-sided US state flag that is still in use. The obverse has a shield with the state's name and founding year, while the reverse has a beaver on it. This flag was adopted on April 15th, 1925, back when 2-sided flags were still common. Now that we have been introduced to the flag of Oregon, let's look at its symbolism. The shield on the obverse comes from the seal of Oregon. The shield is surrounded by 33 stars, representing Oregon being the 33rd state. In the foreground of the shield is a covered wagon, representing the American settlers of the 19th century. In a similar theme, 2 ships are featured in the background. The one sailing away from the seal is a British warship representing the United Kingdom relinquishing its claims to the Oregon country, which was disputed with the United States until 1946. While the one arriving, which is just about visible next to the British ship, is an American steamboat, representing Oregon being a definitive part of the United States. Meanwhile, the elk next to the wagon represents how elk are common in Oregon. Below the wagon and elk is a banner simply saying, "The Union." On top of the shield is an eagle, obviously a symbol of the United States. Above the shield is Oregon's official name, State of Oregon. And below it is the year 1859, the year Oregon became a state. The reverse has a beaver facing toward the hoist, because the beaver is the state animal of Oregon. That is the symbolism of the flag of Oregon. So let's take a look at some proposed replacements. Due to Oregon being an SOB, as well as being made even more complex by its two sides, there have been several new proposals for a new state flag since 2009. One of the most notable of these is the winning design of a competition held by the newspaper The Oregonian on that year. This design, by one Randall Gray, has two green and white stripes flanking a larger blue stripe with a gold star and the beaver from the current flag on it. Blue and gold are Oregon's state colors, while green represents the wilderness of Oregon. The white stripes are there to contrast with the green and blue. Meanwhile, the star represents Oregon being a U.S. state, and the beaver is, as I said before, the state animal. Another proposal from 2013 also uses the beaver in state colors, this time in a blue and gold bicolor, with the beaver in the canton and a blue stripe with a white star in the hoist, with the star representing Oregon being part of the USA. There are many more proposals, including several from the aforementioned contest of 2009, so check it out down in the description. For now, on to the home of the first US government. Pennsylvania. Our next flag is the flag of Pennsylvania, a blue field with the Pennsylvanian coat of arms on it. The coat of arms is being held up by horses, which are standing on a compartment saying Pennsylvania's motto, virtue, liberty, and independence. Inside the shield are symbols of Pennsylvania's strengths. A ship, representing commerce, a plow, representing natural resources, and 3 sheaves of wheat, representing agriculture and human thought. To the right of the shield is an olive branch representing peace, while on the left is a cornstalk representing prosperity. On top of the shield is the bald eagle of the United States, representing the federal republic that Pennsylvania is a part of. This flag was adopted in its current form on June 13, 1907, although the basic design has been in use since 1798. That's all for Pennsylvania, so let's move on to our next state, Rhode Island. Our next flag is the flag of the state of Rhode Island, a white field with 13 gold stars surrounding an anchor and the word hope. We'll go over the symbolism in a bit, but, you guessed it, let's go over its history. Before 1877, Rhode Island did not have its own flag, although the 1st Rhode Island Regiment used the flag during the American Revolutionary War. It was only in 1877 that Rhode Island adopted its first official flag, 38 stars surrounding an anchor and the word hope. Later, in 1882, hope was removed and the anchor was placed inside a circle of 13 stars on a blue field. The blue was changed to white and the hope text was restored on November 1st, 1897 with the adoption of Rhode Island's current flag. Now, let's look at the symbolism. The 13 stars surrounding the anchor simultaneously represent Rhode Island being one of the 13 colonies, and Rhode Island being the 13th state to ratify the U.S. Constitution. The word hope is the state motto of Rhode Island, and its use alongside an anchor dates back to the 1640s and the seal of Rhode Island at the time. The association of an anchor with hope likely comes from a biblical phrase in verse 6, lines 18 through 19 of the Epistle to the Hebrews. Hope we have is an anchor of the soul. That's it for today, so on to the outro. And now you know even more about US state flags. In this episode, we have talked about the new flag of Mississippi, as well as the pre-existing flags of states beginning with the letters O through R. In a few days, we'll talk about even more US state flags. with our video about US states beginning with the letters S to W. Then finish this prolonged 4th of July special by talking about the flags of US territories, as well as Washington DC. So stay tuned for those. For now, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like on it, and if you enjoyed this entire channel, subscribe to it. And if you want to know when the next video will be coming out, click the bell button after you subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video.